Hi guys, now we are at chapter 9, tax planning for companies. Basically, in this chapter, I'm going to highlight or explain to you all some strategies, or we can say approaches, on how a company can actually plan its tax. With proper planning, a company could reduce its income tax liability, but we have to make sure that to do it by ways allowed by the laws as not to commit tax evasion. So remember that tax planning or tax avoidance is a legal approach to reduce tax liability, while on the other hand, tax evasion is considered as financial crime and it is totally unethical. So the outline of this topic is as follows. You can see in this slide, there are 9 subtopics altogether, and because the coverage is too many, I'm going to separate the videos to several parts. Please make sure that you go through all of them as not to miss any important points, okay? First and foremost, let's have a look at the commencements of the business. When does a business is considered commence in the tax point of view? And why is it important to know when does a business start? So to answer the first question, the commencement date of a business is determined by looking at the commencements of its essential activities. So kita akan tengok dekat activity of the business, bila dia mula buat essential activities. For example, a trading business is considered started when it embarks on its purchasing activities. This is because a trading company needs to purchase its inventory as to start the business. The day a company acquires stock or inventories is considered as its commencement date. As for manufacturing company, its commencement date is the day it starts producing manufactured goods. Looking at these examples, we could simply conclude that for tax purposes, the determination of commencement date is by reference to the essential activities of the company, not when the company generate the income from those activities. So nak tahu bila business tu bermula, commence, kita akan tengok bila dia mula buat essential activities, bukannya bila business dapat income. Okay? The second question is, why does it important to know the commencement date of the business? The first reason is relating to revenue expenses. Revenue expenses incurred prior to commencement date is not allowed as a deduction. For example, rental expenses we know is a revenue expenses. Rental kita boleh tolak kan? But if the rental expenses incurred before the date of commencement, these expenses is not allowable. Walaupun pada awalnya rental dia adalah revenue expenses, dibenarkan untuk tolak, but kita dah bayar rental tu sebelum commencement date. So that rental dah jadi not allowable. The second importance of commencement date is for the treatment of business loss. Once a business is commenced and let's say it suffers a loss, biasalah kan business baru start, tahun awal-awal tu berkemungkinan besar untuk rugi. Business loss can be set off against aggregate income. This one I am referring to current year business loss. If the loss is not fully utilized in the current year, it could be carried forward to subsequent years to be set off against statutory business income. So, once business commence, kalau dia ada loss, current year business loss boleh tolak daripada aggregate income, while unabsorbed business loss kita akan bawa ke tahun depan dan tolak daripada statutory business income. What about qualifying expenditure? Business might purchase asset or fixed asset lah, non-current asset that qualify to claim capital allowance. But dia akan beli tu right before the commencement date. Logik lah kan? Macam kita nak buka business, kita mesti dah beli asset like machine or dah buat factory ataupun you beli vehicle sebelum you punya commencement date, sebelum you start your essential activities. So, for the treatment of qualifying expenditure, walaupun dia incurred prior to the commencement date, for tax purpose, we going to consider it to be deemed incurred on the date of commencement. I put it into illustration supaya you lebih senang faham. For example, manufacturing company bought a machine on 1st January 2020. Tapi dia hanya start buat production on 1st February 2020. Kita dah belajar before this, commencement date untuk manufacturing company adalah bila dia start produce manufacturing goods. So in this example, 1 February 2020 lah dia punya commencement date. But dia dah beli mesin tu pada 1 January. So untuk treatment qualifying expenditure incurred prior to commencement date, kita akan deem incurred on the commencement date. Walaupun dia beli masa 1 January, for the sake of nak claim capital allowance, kita akan still treat dia happen on 1st February 2020. Now, let's discuss some tax implications of commencement date. Firstly, commencement date will determine the basis period for tax. Bila bisnes bermula akan menentukan waktu untuk kita start buat taksiran cukai dia. Generally, the basis period of a financial year of a 12 month will be the basis YA for tax. For example, kalau financial year bermula 1st March 2017 and ending on 28th of February 2018, so the year of assessment is 2018. Kita tak akan buat YA 2017 sebab kita nak tengok dia habis dia punya financial year tu bila. From here, we could see that when the business commences, akan determine the YA of when the income tax will be assessed for that particular business. Secondly, commencement date plays important role juga in the treatment of business loss. So again, I repeat, current year business loss can be set off against aggregate income, while unabsorbed loss could be carried forward to the subsequent years to be set off against statutory business income. Thirdly, commencement date will determine whether the revenue expenses is allowable for a deduction or not. General rule is that revenue expenses is allowable. However, if the revenue expenses incurred prior to the commencement date, it is not allowed as deduction. So here, the strategy for the company is to plan its tax. Cara macam mana dia nak buat, dia kena make sure that revenue expenses incurred on or after the commencement date. For the revenue expenses to be deductible in arriving at the adjusted business income. Kita tahu kan, untuk revenue expenses kita boleh tolak. So, bila kita tolak daripada adjusted business income, it will result in lower chargeable income and hence lower income tax payable. So, rugilah kalau revenue expenses tu incurred prior commencement date, tak boleh tolak. Kita kalau boleh nak banyakkan expenses yang allowable supaya kita boleh dapat minimizekan chargeable income. So, ini salah satu strategi macam mana company boleh buat untuk kurangkan income tax payable dengan cara make sure yang revenue expenses incurred on or after commencement date. Okay, now let's spend some time revising types of expenses. First, we have allowable expenses. These expenses are deductible from business income in arriving at the adjusted business income, and it will result in lower income. So, kalau boleh kita nak maximize ataupun banyakkan allowable expenses supaya kita boleh kurangkan adjusted business income. Second type, we have non-allowable expenses. This one is contradict to first one tadi. Non-allowable expenses, example, capital expenditure, non-business expenses, expenses yang tak ada kaitan dengan business, and also expenses which are not outgoings, macam depreciation. So, untuk non-allowable expenses, kalau boleh, company should minimize sebabnya dia tidak dibenarkan untuk tolak. Kita akan add back non-allowable expenses yang akan menyebabkan our chargeable income akan jadi higher. Higher chargeable income will result in higher income tax payable. So, yang ni kita tak nak. The third types of expenses, here we have double deduction. Example yang famous untuk double deduction is the remuneration paid to disabled employees. So, companies are encouraged to incur expenses yang akan dapat double deduction sebab kita boleh tolak 2 kali. Okay, tolak 2 kali tu akan menyebabkan kita punya income akan jadi much lower and hence results in lower income tax payable by the company. Next, let's look at qualifying training expenses. So, for training incurred by a company in respect of potential employees prior to the commencement of business is deductible at the time of commencement. Before this, kita dah make it clear, expenses incurred prior to commencement date is not deductible, but here there is special treatment for training expenses. Okay, so untuk business or company, bila dia nak start buat business, dia dah hantar staff pergi training before commencement date. So, kalau tengok, dia berlaku sebelum commencement date, tak boleh dibenarkan untuk tolak, but special treatment for training dibenarkan tolak. Given that syarat dia, training incurred for the potential employees to impart basic skills to enable the company to commence its business. Kalau staff tak pergi training tu, dia tak boleh nak buat kerja dia. And it incurred within a period of 1 year prior to the commencement of business. Kalau fulfill dua syarat ni, then qualifying training expenses incurred prior to the commencement date is deductible. Okay, we are done with expenses. Now, let's look at tax implication of commencement date in terms of capital allowance. The acquisition of asset would be capital allowance if the asset fall into the ambit of plant, machinery or industrial building as stipulated under Schedule 3. The condition is that the company should has incurred, own and use such qualifying asset in the business. And you have learned before this, for capital allowance, we have different rates for initial allowance, IA, and annual allowance, depending on the types of asset. CA will be set off against adjusted income to arrive at statutory income. Kita ada adjusted business income, kita akan tolak dengan capital allowance so that kita dapat statutory business income. Any unabsorbed CA can be carried forward to future years to be set off against the same business income, provided that the business source has not ceased permanently. So bear in mind that CA for business 1 cannot be utilized against adjusted income of business 2 or vice versa. So tak boleh nak tolak CA for business 1 against income of business 2. You tak boleh tolak CA for particular source against the income of other sources. On the cessation of business permanently, unabsorbed CA would be a permanent loss. So let's say business 1 dah cease, dah stop, tapi ada lagi unabsorbed CA yang belum utilize. Kita tak boleh nak tolak unabsorbed CA of business 1 against income of business 2. Dia akan jadi permanent loss kalau business 1 tadi tu dah cease permanently. So yang ni special untuk motor vehicle sahaja. Kalau business beli commercial vehicle, there is no restrictions on the amount of QE. Berapa cost of your commercial vehicle, amount itulah yang you boleh gunakan untuk claim CA. But if the company purchase new passenger vehicle and the cost of that vehicle is less than 150,000, so QE will be restricted to 100,000. But kalau cost of the vehicle is more than 150,000, the qualifying expenditure will be restricted to 50,000 only. Yang ni untuk new passenger vehicle. While if the company acquires second-hand passenger vehicle, regardless of the cost of that vehicle, QE will be limited to 50,000 only. So yang ni special untuk motor vehicle. Kalau dalam soalan kata company beli motor vehicle, bila you nak calculate dia punya capital allowance, kena beware yang kita ada restriction, especially on passenger vehicle. Okay. Kalau commercial vehicle, tak ada restriction. So, having said that those dekat previous slide tadi tu, kita ada beberapa cara yang kita boleh suggest for company on how to plan its tax with regard to capital allowance. Okay, first kali, it is always tax efficient to structure various business activity to be under one source of business income rather than two sources of business. Remember tadi, CA untuk business 1 tak boleh tolak daripada income for business 2. So, kalau business 1 tu ada loss ataupun dah cease permanently, masih ada lagi unabsorbed CA, kita tak boleh nak tolak daripada business 2. So, rugilah. Therefore, the suggestion is make sure you hanya ada satu source of business sahaja supaya kita boleh fully utilize the CA within the company. Second planning is with regard to motor vehicle. Tadi dah cerita CA bila nak claim capital allowance, there will be restrictions on the QE. Okay, but for commercial vehicle tak ada restriction. You boleh claim seberapa banyak pun based on the cost of commercial vehicle. While untuk passenger vehicle pula, kalau kos kurang 150,000, restricted QE sebanyak 100,000, and kalau kos more than 150,000, QE will be restricted to 50,000 sahaja. So, for tax planning, it is recommended for a company to buy commercial vehicle sebab tak ada restriction on the QE. So, bila tak ada restriction, banyaklah CA yang kita boleh claim. Kalau company kena juga beli passenger vehicle, we suggest for them to get a passenger vehicle yang kos dia kurang daripada 150,000 sebab QE restriction is much higher, 100,000 as compared to kalau kita beli passenger vehicle yang baru, harga dia lebih daripada 150,000, QE yang dibenarkan hanyalah setakat 50,000 sahaja. So, ini antara beberapa planning yang we can suggest to company dia boleh buat supaya income tax payable can be minimized. Finally, we are done with the subtopic regarding the commencement state of the business. To better understanding of this topic, I provide two guided illustration for you where we going to discuss these two in class group WhatsApp. See you there, and thank you for watching this video.